Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're taking a look at DragonCraft. This deck is pretty straightforward and pretty normal. This is what I've seen a lot of people running in the Shadowverse open decks and stuff like that. Very straightforward design. I like the Righteous Dragoon, honestly. I've enjoyed that card quite a bit. I have got the One Eyes tech as it's quite a nice damage card. I don't use it a lot, but when I do use it, it does close out a game nicely. Ultiplane Arbiters I still quite like. Some people don't like the RNG of them. You could easily swap those for a couple of extra eyes or whatever else you really want, but honestly, I'm quite comfortable with two and usually have some decent pulls off them. I would say 50-50 on whether you get at least one of the two cards you're looking for most of the time. Then the Prince of Kakaitis, of course, being the top end. It's just a dragon staple at this point. You can't really avoid it in Ramp Dragon because it's just that good of a card. Otherwise, I hope you guys will enjoy this and we'll get right into it. So Dragon's definitely been a stable pick if you are looking to rank ladder at the moment. It's such a strong deck and it's very easy to just roll opponents over pretty quickly as far as getting your ramp going. Typically, I will mulligan hard for ramp cards. I'm not really interested in any of my top end until I get to the stage where I can use them. So aiming for things like Dragon Cleaver Roy, Dragon Oracle, things like that really do help. I have found going second can be a reasonable advantage, especially in matchups like this where you're up against Portalcraft. And the only other thing I try and do, of course, in most matchups is limit what my opponents can do as far as playing spells and things once I do get Prince on board. That's why in a Portal matchup, Prince is extremely important. Of course, not getting Omen definitely makes a difference going up against Portal. If they don't end up having that on turn 4 to 5, it can definitely go your way quite quickly. Although we do have, of course, banish effects with Prince, so as long as you're ramping quick, I would say in those situations you are easily a 50-50. Although they have to have a pretty ideal hand to really pull that off. Like, example, amazing draw here, getting, of course, both puppet rooms off, being able to get as many puppets in hand as possible while at the same time using them and setting themselves up really nicely. But at the same time, we're ramping reasonably hard. Not perfectly. Ideally, I would have had an Evo ramp there instead, but this isn't too bad. I mainly went for the Evo to bait out puppets. Not the best thing to do, but the best thing I could come up with on the spot. That way, if they don't have Omen, they're forced to deal with this. If they did have Omen, it would have been a nice advantage for them, but I don't think it would have mattered much. They would get that advantage either way in the long run. Also, as a quick side note, I've been working on trying to fix the audio issue at the beginning of videos. I'm not sure if I've still got it sorted, but I can't keep re-recording videos trying to fix it. So at this stage, it's like 1 or 2 seconds at the beginning of videos. So hopefully, if it does stay like that, I just don't know what to do. I've been through reset, unplugged, plugged things back in, tried to mess around with audio settings and had really no luck, but hopefully it's not a big issue and it doesn't persist throughout the rest of the video, so that tiny little bit at the beginning is really the only issue. We have Shining Bellringer Angel. That's actually a really nice card for them to pull off to just kind of lock me in here. Luckily for me, this Prince is actually a nice play. I do want to hold off on the Evo though. I feel like saving that since I can deal with this quite easily without wasting too much. The only real disadvantage is I don't have the Poseidon combination to go with. But we've already got nice cards set up. But they're doing a wonderful job at this. It looks like they're setting up for a Maisha. Since I hadn't gone for Omen yet, Maisha is the only other card I can think of that they would aim to get onto the board. Fortunately for us, we do get Infernal Gaze, which isn't a bad card, but not what I'm going to be using now. That's a better card to save closer to the Maisha turns when we want to really screw over any kind of mass board clear, which is why I am saving it. A Poseidon plus Infernal Gaze can really screw over them on turn 10, which is exactly what I'll be aiming for. There is Amulet, great. That's a great thing to bait out, especially since we did top deck Heavenfall. It's going to deal with that very nicely. And we ended up getting Hellbeast, which, considering their board is now empty, is actually a good play just to set up an 8-8 ward. Very difficult to deal with. They are going to, of course, force out this puppet and investigation. Looks like they're digging, they're looking for whatever they can get. And unfortunately, I don't really get a lot, so we're definitely going to go for the Poseidon Infernal Gaze combination. I also evolved the Hellbeast just to up its health a little bit. I don't think there was anything they could use to really get over it, but I wanted to make sure that if they're going to trade into this, they're going to have to trade a lot. Omen of Destruction, so they finally obviously pulled the Omen. little bad luck on their part, but they did stabilize quite nicely really up until now. And if they end up having a Maisha, they could really end this game quickly since they have gone through so many puppets. That's why this game was actually quite close. I just happened to be able to set up the perfect ward advantage and hold off long enough to really get myself stabilized. And from here all we needed was this Flame Lord of Deceit to wipe the amulet and then go face for 15 quite easily. I honestly had over 20, but 15 was going to be more than enough to wipe them out. And next up, it is a dragon versus dragon matchup. These are very close to mirrors a lot of the time, since pretty much every dragon deck is very similar with one or two tech choices depending on what you want to play. Mostly the things like Alterplane are kind of the big one. Alterplane is the biggest tech choice. Some people completely cut it, some people run it. Some people have run Zoe, others don't. There's just a few decent tech choices people can make. I am surprised we're not seeing more Shadow after the Shadowverse open, but I mean, that's pretty normal, I guess. Shadow's quite an expensive deck, and if people hadn't already invested in it, unless you're a top player, you're probably not bringing it to the ranked. So we did start off with a nice bit of ramp, and we ended up having a decent draw effect going here, so why not look for a couple of cards? Looking for any more ramp, we did manage to find one Oracle. We also have a nice setup with the Dragon Unit and Disdainful, which is going to pretty easily deal with this, while still getting our ramp, without wasting anything too valuable. It was definitely a nice early game setup, and it's probably what will lead to our victory in the end. Being able to set this up against Dragon and have them force trade. Since our opponent really hasn't had much of a chance to ramp, only getting the sword now, which is not great for them. We end up with another Dragon Oracle, ramping even further into the lead. I decided to set up the Handspur since we can just use the White Frost to clear the 4-3. It's a pretty effective way to do things, while going face for just that little bit of damage. Sneer of Disdain, that's an interesting one. Not a card you see every day, and they're definitely taking a different route for their DragonCraft. But we got our turn 9, well not turn 9, but 9 play point, Prince of Cocytus on board as quickly as possible. I believe this is actually might be turn 5, I think. Yeah, I don't know, turn 5 or 6 at this point. Either way, we did a wonderful job getting that down. Now it's just a matter of getting whatever we want to deal with this. Matarasu trade, it's a pretty wasteful Evo in my opinion at the moment, but if you don't have anything else to do, that's definitely not a bad choice. And that wasn't a great draw, but at least we have Dragon's Handspur to draw another card, and we end up with Heavenfall as well. So Earthfall and Heavenfall are great when you can use them, and not so great when you don't have any way to use them. But at least we had that extra draw play out, which was worthwhile, and obviously led to them conceding. So definitely was in our favour there. Now for a small bonus game, we do have Havencraft. This is a reasonably quick concede, which is why I didn't include it at the start of the video, and we're just going to throw it on the end here as we go through it. But it was a good show on what you can do with some of these low cost cards to really pressure your opponent out, especially against Havencraft that typically doesn't swarm super early until about turn 4, so if you can take the initiative with things like Dragon Sword, you can usually do okay. But it's also a pretty interesting way to show that you can even go pretty well without some ramp. So they did have Temple Windbear, looks like they're running a very low cost rune deck, since Temple Windbear typically isn't ran in a lot of decks. And of course, Sacred Plea, since they did pull that off the Windbear, they're definitely aiming for that draw, no surprise. But it does at the same time mean they left this up, which is a huge advantage for us, especially since we did end up with a little bit of ramp, allowing us to push the Omen to Disdain next turn, especially since we drew 2 of them. Alright, past the City of Golds. This is what I was talking about. In the early game in a deck like this, they don't really do a lot. Even in Lionhaven decks, they don't typically do a lot until turn 3 to 4, where they can drop wider boards. Going up against something like Disdain on turn 4, against that would be a devastating play, so we did pretty well in that match. So even playing cards such as Disdain, Dragon Sword, without getting their full effects can work really well in the Haven matchup in particular. Of course, if you get better ramp, you can do much better, but even on a bad hand, you can sort of do okay in the kind of tier 2 Haven decks. I'd say going up against Lion would be more difficult, but not impossible. So hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. I do enjoy playing DragonCraft as far as it is right now, just because it is reasonably consistent. Doesn't have to be a bad thing. I mean, when you're winning, and that is the most important thing when trying to rank up, other than, of course, having fun. So that's what I've been focusing on right now, just trying to get through the start of this month's ranked process so that I can get those rewards before I start just kind of memeing on ladder for some fun. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, hit the like button and subscribe for more content. You'll find the deck list in the description below. Until next time, see ya.